nature. Nature itself is seen as the manifestation of the Great Spirit's power and wisdom. For instance, the changing seasons, the cycle of birth and death, and the interconnectedness of all living things are all considered expressions of this divine force. This perspective fosters a deep respect for the natural world, encouraging humans to live in harmony with it, understanding that harming nature is akin to disrespecting the sacred. This contrasts with anthropomorphism, which is the attribution of human traits, emotions, or intentions to non-human entities. While some spiritual traditions might depict deities with human characteristics to make them more relatable, the Great Spirit concept often moves beyond such representations. Instead of a being who walks, talks, or feels emotions in a human way, the Great Spirit is understood as a fundamental life force, a source of all existence. Think of it like the electricity that powers a light bulb. You don't see the electricity itself, but you see its effect, the light. Similarly, the Great Spirit's presence is recognized through its effects on the world, through the natural order and the vitality of life. The sacredness in nature, as understood in relation to the Great Spirit, means that every element of the natural world holds intrinsic value and spiritual significance. A mountain is not just a rock formation. It is a powerful entity. A stream is not merely flowing water. It is a life-giving force. This reverence extends to all beings, from the smallest insect to the largest animal, recognizing that each plays a vital role in the grand tapestry of existence. This worldview encourages gratitude for the gifts of nature, clean air, fresh water, food, and a sense of responsibility to protect these resources for future generations. It's about seeing the divine in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the everyday natural world. The Great Spirit in popular culture. The concept of the Great Spirit, often a singular, all-powerful creator deity, has been widely adopted and adapted in popular culture, sometimes diverging significantly from its original indigenous contexts. This portrayal frequently simplifies complex spiritual beliefs into easily digestible and often romanticized archetypes. For instance, in many films and books, the Great Spirit is depicted as a wise, elder figure who communicates directly with protagonists, offering guidance or bestowing powers. This narrative device, while compelling, can overshadow the nuanced and diverse ways indigenous peoples understood and interacted with the spiritual world. The portrayal tends to homogenize varied traditions, presenting a monolithic Indian spirituality that doesn't reflect the rich tapestry of distinct tribal beliefs and practices. This popular interpretation often imbues the Great Spirit with a benevolent, almost parental, role. It's a force that intervenes directly in human affairs, ensuring justice or protecting the innocent, much like a divine overseer in Western religions. Think of characters in adventure stories who receive a vision or a sign from the Great Spirit at a crucial moment, propelling them toward their destiny. This can lead to a superficial understanding, where the Great Spirit becomes a plot device rather than a deeply revered spiritual entity central to a culture's worldview. The emphasis shifts from reverence and ritual to a more action-oriented, often anthropomorphic, divine presence. Furthermore, popular culture frequently grafts the Great Spirit onto narratives where it doesn't traditionally belong, or uses it as a symbol for nature or the cosmos. This can result in a dilution of its meaning, turning a sacred concept into a generalized symbol of the mystical or the natural world. For example, a character might refer to the Great Spirit of the mountain or the Great Spirit of the forest, extending the term beyond its original cosmological significance. While this might seem harmless, it risks trivializing profound spiritual beliefs by reducing them to mere metaphors for environmentalism or a vague sense of universal energy. The intricate relationship between specific indigenous cultures and their understanding of the Great Spirit becomes lost in translation, replaced by a more generic, universally accessible spiritual notion. Academic versus popular understandings. Academic and popular understandings of the Great Spirit, a concept found in various indigenous North American spiritual traditions, often diverge significantly. Scholars, particularly anthropologists and religious studies experts, approach the Great Spirit with an emphasis on diversity and specificity. They highlight that the term Great Spirit itself is often a simplification or even a mistranslation, sometimes imposed by European colonizers and missionaries who sought to fit indigenous beliefs into their own monotheistic frameworks. Academics stress that many indigenous cultures had, and continue to have, complex cosmologies with multiple spiritual beings, creator deities, and forces of nature, rather than a single, universally conceived Great Spirit. For instance, the Iroquois peoples have the Great Creator, but also numerous other spirits and forces. The Lakota have Wakantanka, which is often translated as Great Spirit, but is understood as a complex totality of all that is sacred, encompassing many spirits and powers. Popular understandings, often shaped by New Age spirituality, romanticized notions of indigenous peoples, or simplified portrayals in media, tend to present a more monolithic and generalized image of the Great Spirit. This view often strips away the nuanced cultural contexts and specific traditions associated with different tribes. It can lead to an oversimplification where the Great Spirit is seen as a singular, all-powerful, benevolent God, akin to the Abrahamic God, detached from the intricate web of relationships and responsibilities that indigenous peoples traditionally understood to exist between humanity, the natural world, and the spiritual realm. This popular interpretation can inadvertently erase the distinctiveness of individual indigenous spiritual practices. The divergence impacts how these beliefs are perceived and respected. When the Great Spirit is understood only through a simplified, popular lens, it risks being trivialized or appropriated. For example, using the term casually in non-indigenous contexts without understanding its deep cultural roots can be seen as disrespectful. Academics advocate for a deeper engagement with the specific traditions and teachings of the indigenous nations themselves, encouraging a move away from generalized notions towards an appreciation of the rich diversity of indigenous spiritual thought. This means recognizing that there isn't one single Great Spirit belief, but rather a multitude of interconnected spiritual understandings, each with its own history, practices, and meaning. Furthermore, the academic perspective emphasizes that indigenous spirituality is not static. It has evolved and continues to adapt. Popular portrayals, however, often freeze these beliefs in a romanticized past, ignoring the resilience and dynamism of indigenous cultures. Understanding the Great Spirit requires acknowledging the specific cultural origins, the diversity among different indigenous nations, and the ongoing vitality of these spiritual traditions. It's about moving beyond a one-size-fits-all interpretation to embrace the intricate and varied spiritual landscape of indigenous North America. Reclaiming indigenous spiritual narratives. The concept of the Great Spirit, a supreme being or creator, is a common thread woven through many indigenous spiritual traditions across North America. However, the specific interpretations and the narratives surrounding this powerful entity have often been misunderstood or misrepresented by outsiders. For generations, colonial powers and subsequent cultural assimilation efforts have imposed their own religious frameworks, leading to a distorted view of indigenous beliefs. This has resulted in a situation where the original, rich tapestry of indigenous spiritual understanding has been overshadowed by external, often inaccurate, portrayals. Reclaiming these spiritual narratives is a vital act of cultural preservation and self-determination for indigenous peoples. It involves actively challenging the colonial myths and stereotypes that have been perpetuated about the Great Spirit and other sacred concepts. For example, some colonial accounts depicted indigenous spirituality as primitive or animistic, failing to recognize the sophisticated theological underpinnings present in many traditions. The Great Spirit, in many indigenous worldviews, is not a distant, anthropomorphic deity in the Western sense, but rather an omnipresent force, the source of all life, and a guiding principle that permeates the natural world. This understanding emphasizes interconnectedness, a concept often lost in more hierarchical religious structures. This reclamation process empowers indigenous communities to tell their own stories, in their own voices, about their spiritual heritage. It means returning to traditional teachings, oral histories, and ceremonial practices to rediscover and reaffirm the authentic meanings. For instance, A community might work to revitalize a specific creation story that explains the origin of the world and humanity's place within it, a story that might have been suppressed or altered during periods of forced religious conversion. By doing so, they are not just preserving the past, they are actively shaping their present and future, ensuring that the wisdom and spiritual depth of their ancestors continue to guide and inspire younger generations. This active engagement with tradition reinforces cultural identity and strengthens community bonds. The dangers of oversimplification. The concept of a singular Great Spirit can be a profound oversimplification of diverse indigenous spiritual beliefs. Many cultures across North America held intricate cosmologies with numerous deities, spirits, and forces of nature, each with specific roles and relationships. Attributing all spiritual power to one entity erases this rich complexity, much like saying all music is just loud noise, without appreciating the nuances of melody, harmony, and rhythm. For instance, the Anishinaabe people have a complex spiritual system that includes various Manitous, or spirits, that inhabit the natural world, not just a single overarching deity. Reducing their beliefs to a simple Great Spirit misses the intricate web of spiritual connections they perceive. This oversimplification can lead to misunderstandings and the appropriation of indigenous spirituality. When a complex belief system is flattened into a single, easily digestible concept, it becomes easier for outsiders to adopt superficial elements without grasping the deeper cultural context and responsibilities. Think of it like seeing a beautiful, intricate tapestry and only noticing the dominant color, ignoring the thousands of threads that create the full picture. This superficial understanding can strip sacred practices of their meaning and reduce them to mere aesthetics or trends. Furthermore, the idea of a Great Spirit often carries Western, monotheistic undertones that do not accurately reflect indigenous worldviews. Many indigenous traditions emphasize a balance and interconnectedness of all things, rather than a hierarchical structure with a single supreme being. It's akin to describing a thriving ecosystem with countless interdependent species as if it were just a single, dominant plant. This misrepresentation can inadvertently impose foreign religious frameworks onto indigenous cultures, undermining their autonomy and the integrity of their ancestral knowledge. The danger lies in creating a caricature, a simplified image that is easier to market or control, but ultimately does a disservice to the living, breathing spiritual traditions it purports to represent. 0:0. The Great Spirit, a concept woven into many indigenous cultures, isn't a single, universally defined deity. Instead, it represents a powerful, life-giving force, the essence of creation that connects all things, from the smallest insect to the vastest galaxy. It's the breath in our lungs, the energy in the sun, the spirit in the trees. Understanding this isn't about believing in a specific religious dogma, but about recognizing the interconnectedness of life and the profound presence of spirit in the world around us. 0:30. So, next time you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin or hear the rustling of leaves in the wind, take a moment. That's the Great Spirit, a reminder of the vibrant energy that flows through everything. It's a universal truth, felt in the heart, not just understood by the mind. 0:50. What other spiritual concepts have you encountered that bridge different cultures? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this exploration insightful, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of human belief. 1:10. In our next episode, we'll delve into the fascinating world of spirit animals. What are they, and how do they connect to the Great Spirit? Don't miss it.